I had nowhere else to turn. Moments before, I was content with my friends and colleagues from the Grey, laughing, and in a split second, that was taken away.
A phone was ringing in the background. I was in that in-between state that allowed the sounds from my surroundings to intertwine with my unconscious. It took a moment or two for me to discern whether I was hearing my real phone or a conjured-up phone in my sleepy goings-on. Another ring, and then the sound of the vibrating device on a hard surface, and it became clear. It was most certainly my cell phone, which was across the bedroom on the desk. I looked at my watch as I threw the covers off my lanky 6'1" body, my pale white skin almost glowing in the dark room. It was 12:20 a.m. on July 5th, 2017. My wife, Carol, and I had spent a relatively quiet 4th of July earlier that day, recovering from a staff party we hosted the day before in the garden of our Savannah home for the team who worked at the downtown restaurant that I co-owned, the Grey. As I navigated the tangle of sheets, 2 large Rhodesian Ridgebacks, and Carol, my adrenaline began to push the grogginess from my head. The Grey was closed that Tuesday for the Independence Day holiday. I could think of no reason anyone would be calling me after midnight on a Tuesday night unless it was an emergency. Having grown up in a Roman Catholic Italian household in New York City with a fireman as a father, I had become conditioned to the idea that the late-night phone call was never good news. I expected the worst. I made it to the desk and lurched into consciousness when I saw the name Mashama Bailey, my business partner and the executive chef of the Grey. My worry spiked. Mashama would never call me at this time of night unless something was wrong.
3 years into our partnership, and I only called Jono when I had to. This man I didn't know when we started would check on me constantly to see if I was getting my footing, but I rarely reached out to him in return. The work was hard at the Grey, and especially the building of a partnership, all of which I expected, but moving to and living in Savannah alone was harder. I felt like a fraud because I was in over my head. I was making too many mistakes at work, and I was still uncomfortable talking to my business partner, who in many ways still felt like my boss. But this night was different. Something terrible had just happened. I had few choices. I knew that Jono would come if I called. He had been trying to be that type of friend to me for 3 years. I was never so vulnerable before. I never had to ask him to come to help me. But on this night, I needed to trust that choice. I had to trust him. So I reached out for help.
Hopefully, she just forgot her keys and locked herself out of her apartment. "Hey," I said, the roughness of my voice indicating that I was not completely successful in shaking off the sleep. "What's up?" Mashama, who is almost always bright and full of energy, was anything but. As she began to speak, her voice was filled with anguish. "Jono," she wailed, using the nickname my parents had given me. "There's been a terrible accident," she screamed, hyperventilating into the line. And then stuttering between breaths, she said, I don't think Scott is alive. I haven't seen him." "Wait, what?" I thought. "What are Scott?" I asked, hoping that she was not talking about him, adding, "What happened?" "I don't know. It all happened so fast. There was a car. It came out of nowhere. It hit Scott. I saw him go up onto the hood, but it was going so fast and it hit him so hard. I don't know." She took another shallow breath. "Then it crashed into a pole, and I think he was still on it. It was bad, Jono. It was really bad."
I knew he was dead. My entire body felt the impact. I remained frozen in the middle of Bay Street, hoping he would walk out of the wreckage. I expected to see him, hear him, hug him, but that didn't happen. I stood there in the middle of the intersection with a ringing in my ears that I will never forget. Shaken, I placed one foot in front of the other and walked forward. The moment I reached the curb, I cried out before I collapsed.